this might be short, but it has to do with consciousness, living forever, the science of what's happening with our medicine today and stuff like that. Okay, so I was watching Chris Williamson in his podcast, and he was talking to, I think, a scientist or a doctor or whoever. But he basically said they had this, I think it's a protein, and I guess what happens is with our cells is what keeps us young and stuff like that, and it goes to, like, certain cells goes to certain areas and stuff like that, and what happens is I think this is it, I forgot, I don't really try to remember, but I think what happens is the cells get mixed up and they go to different areas they're not supposed to be, so that's when the deterioration happens and stuff like that with our health. So I think it's a protein, he said. What it does is it's going to do that. It's going to make sure everything's going where it needs to be, so that you're not so your cells are going where it needs to be, and you're keeping to that young look, that healthy, we call your organs are going to be healthy and all that stuff, right? And I'm thinking too with that, because there was also this thing where I think it's at 33, your brain's, that's the peak of your brain or some shit like that, 40, 50. That's when it starts to decline, 60, 70s, when it's like sunsetting or some shit like that. And what else? I think the brain fully develops at like at 30, 33, whatever, right? And then what I just mentioned. What else? You could go to women. At the age of 40, whatever, menopause comes and stuff like that. Whenever that time comes, it comes, right? But it's at 40. That's when menopause happens. For women, all women. And what else? I guess you could even say, I don't know exactly the science behind that, but the peak performance for us humans is in our 30s. But in the early 30s, but after that, from half to the later end of our 30s, that's when just give me a second. Later from the middle of your 30s to later, you decline. Your decline goes super, like, it goes away. Your athleticism goes, you lose steps and stuff like that. And all this stuff, right? My thing with that too is, so he mentions that that's what happens, and there's a chance we live forever. And they were doing a rat test with this, and the rat lived equivalent to 200 years. So just say a rat, I don't know how long a rat lives, just say if it's 20, that's equivalent to 100 years for a rat. 20 is 100 years for a rat. If he lives to 40, that's 200 years compared to humans, right? And so it's able to live beyond what we call it. And so that's what I'm wondering is, once that happens, and just say it's going to take like 10 to 20 years before it starts to entering our shelves, right? And just say if that happens and we do it, does everything reset in our bodies to now we no longer have a decline in our athleticism? Does the menopause get pushed back further for women? It's like all these things are like, does that change as well? And so that's that's one thought that came to mind. Another thought that came to mind is consciousness. The other thing is like because sometimes I'm just confused by no I don't know I was gonna because when am I because I sent my guy this thing the guy there's this thing about omega-3 that helps your cells get younger and stuff like that, but he's like he said how if we're living forever, where are we gonna put the people? But even then, AI people are saying the same thing. It's like not that, but necessary, but more or less of what we're gonna do with no jobs and stuff like that. We're gonna be recalled. But I'm like, if we live forever with the these new science, medicine, and AI becomes so advanced that it's just we call it. It doesn't. It gives us the ability to explore not the world, but the universe. And living forever now, we could just live forever, and we could go to different planets and then just be explorers, because that's the reality of what's happening. Once AI becomes so smart, it's going to take all the jobs away from us, yes, but it doesn't. It's also going to help us finally go out in outer space and experience this new frontier that we haven't yet explored. But if I believe the idea of multiple lives. We lived multiple lives and stuff like that. And the thing I'm having trouble with that idea is how come I can't remember it, and not only how come I can't remember it, how come I didn't exist in that reality where I'm existing now. If you get what I'm saying, right now I'm fully aware of everything. Just say if I lived a life before that and I was like whatever, like a fucking an artist. Just say I'm an artist, right? And I've lived that life. I experienced that life, but I wasn't conscious of that life. And there's this guy who made this theory. He said that we didn't have consciousness until we separated God. So he was using I don't know if it was Greek or the Bible, but I think he was in the Greek, and I think it was a Greek person who was using the Bible as a reference or something like that, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but it was just saying how they would reference things, and now how that changed. So this is us. I think I forgot how they word it, but you're going to see how they're going to separate it. But it's like we, us, my God. But basically, it's like saying the way he was speaking in the book was using it as a, like, whoever was doing that, whoever was using their, like, the God or whatever, to explain the world around them. Whereas, as I guess the next book or the books after, multiple books after, he's like, yeah, I experienced this and stuff like this and like that. So there was like this break of, oh, it could just be a writer just evolving, but it was more or less of he was getting the idea that there was a point where this person became conscious because he was now able to separate himself from God and stuff like that. And so is that the case with us, or is it the case that life was so fast that it's so short? Like in this case, say the only reason why I'm conscious now is because I'm going to live in the life of forever. So now I'm able to grasp everything compared to back then, where I lived from, say, birth to 60 years old, 70 years old, and I died. And because that's so quick, it was like a snap of a finger. But because now I'm in the process of living forever, it's no longer a snap of a finger. Now it's collecting data or collecting memories and stuff like that, because it's not short. So is it that? So that's what I'm thinking. Is it just that's why I wasn't able to remember that my past lives? Is because of that, or is it because now I'm finally conscious? So it may not be the fact that I'm not living forever. Just now, I'm conscious. I'm now able to separate myself from God, and I'm able to think for myself and yada yada yada. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is this now the reason why we're able? At least for me, I'm not sure everybody else. Right now, I'm fully aware of my surroundings. Back then, just say, as I said, if I was an artist and I lived to 60, I don't know. I don't have no recollection of that. Like, I could go back to when I was young and I remember going to California, and I remember seeing the hills. I could actually go back in my head and picture that in my head, and sometimes the emotions and stuff like that. But if I were to go back that time, I can't. And just say if I was to exist in that point in time, how come I wasn't able to collect all that information, or recall? And there's this whole conspiracy that we're in a prison, and our souls are being cycled through the moon, and the bullshit conspiracies I believe in. So it could be that, but I just want to go more of this surface level bullshit right here. And it's now the fact that I'm ready to now that I'm able to be conscious aware of my surroundings. Is it because now we're entering the point of forever? And saying that also alludes to no free will. Because for the consciousness to even be aware, to grasp this situation, is being aware that I'm going to live a long time. So it's like I'm not going. So the consciousness. So it's like I'm not. The reason why the consciousness is not keeping the point right there is because it realizes I'm going to die at 60. So that could be another factor that maybe consciousness is the sign of no free will and stuff like that. And also there's a thought that maybe the fact that we might not live forever, stuff like that, might not be real. And there's also this thought I was playing with. Maybe the reason why I'm conscious is, or at least I'm aware of my consciousness, is because I'm maybe because I'm able to break from having no free will, and the reason I have conscious because I have free will, and people who are not conscious of their surroundings right now don't have free will, and they are living on the fact that they are going day by day to what they're living to die, and whereas I'm living to live. Even though that doesn't seem like the case, because I'm not doing that at all, other than I'm, writing and doing this stupid poetry. No, not poetry. This podcast thing. it doesn't change the fact that it might be deteriorate. Oh, not deteriorate. Uh, fuck, what's that word? Going the opposite direction than when it's set forth for me. Or it could be vice versa. I could be falling in line. The person. That's why I'm aware of consciousness of my surroundings, because I am falling in line, while the other person who has no free will isn't, and they are not. I guess have the ability to regain consciousness. Keep the gain consciousness because of them breaking off and living freely. But I think that's that consciousness thing and past lives thing is bothersome, and parts of me thinks it could be because we're living long. We're going to be living longer. Chances are we're going to live forever because of AI. Not only because of AI medicine, because AI could. That's what I'm saying. The problem with this, because the scientists. What else he said? Like the scientists, doctors or scientists are making these medicines, which is great. It's just more or less in the hands who are going to be controlling these medicines. Like recently, they got this ibogaine medicine. That like in Mexico, that's over the counter. You could grab that shit in Mexico, but here you can't. That's considered illegal. Now it's not, but because that was such a so you're saying so it could be America bad, Mexico good in the medicine category, and once we get this, is the United States gonna fuck this up? So it's gonna make it's gonna have side effects when it shouldn't, and stuff like that. And I think because of that, because of medicine and science, and you could say, okay, fucking these FDA America, it's gonna fuck this all up, and it's not gonna be as perfect as we think it is, but the AI is gonna be there, and it's gonna fix that to where it's gonna like, yeah, I can ask my AI to make the protein way better without any side effects, and then guess what? I'm gonna live forever. Well, the government fucking me over, right? So I just think maybe this is why we are conscious. At least for me, if you get what I'm saying, it's I'm aware. I'm aware I'm here. And if we had previous lives, I was never aware of my previous life. If previous life is a thing, I was never aware of that. There might be a person who's aware of that, and I mean, I'm not saying you see in a dream your previous life in a dream, or your previous life during hypnosis, or wherever, or somebody telling you your previous life and what you were in your previous life. I'm talking about right now. I could think about what happened when I was young, and I could talk about what I was feeling when I was young, or whatever the case may be. I could be like, oh, this place is, I could do that. And that's what I mean by being aware, being able to recall. Whereas if somebody gives you that extra help, yes, you could build a narrative around that, and you could say, oh yeah, I knew that. I had in me. It felt like that was always in me. So it'd be like me. I was like I said, I had always this inkling of wanting to be, making music, and it's like, why? Because you just heard, right? Because you just thought about it recently. Like, no, because in my past I would sing and stuff like that. So there was like this understanding. Whereas somebody who says they got some hypnosis or whatever, it says, oh, it says say in the present day they're not brave, but because they go back and they act some hypnosis or whatever, it says, hey, you used to be a fighter and stuff like that. And you're like, oh my God. So that's why sometimes, no, not like that, He's like, no. It could be the case, because that's what they mentioned about the ego. I think it was Hinduism. That's what they mentioned about the ego. The ego is from your past lives of all the things you did, all in everything that you are now is all into that one thing, which is your ego and stuff like that. So yes, you could do that that's basically what it is. So my previous life is the, how you say, my present. I might not have unlocked those things yet, but it's always been there because of my past lives. But if you don't know that, then if you only take life as is, and if you believe you're born to go to heaven and all that stuff, and there's like this other shit, whatever we call and I just think now, I think that's what's I think maybe that's what's happening. I think that's why we're conscious. And I just don't. I think that sounds weird. I think that sounds weird because if you don't believe in past lives, it sounds weird. I believe I believe I lived the past life, and I just don't. And for me, like people who believe there's a God, when you die, you go to heaven or you go to hell. That's a belief, right? And I think their belief is you came from heaven and whatever, I don't know, whatever the fuck they believe. In the beginning, you came from heaven and you were born into your mother. Your soul was given into your whatever, into your mother, and that's how the cycle started. My case is, I believe, a previous life. My soul's in this other body, then it came to this other body, and it's gonna go to another body, and it's gonna keep doing that. And that sounds weird if you don't believe in the past life. And to me it doesn't make sense to why I haven't able to collect all those memories I have. And maybe it comes from my dreams. Maybe if I do a hypnosis, they could bring it out. And maybe it's that alien thing, the alien conspiracy thing, where we were being psycho and they're erasing our memories, so that's why we're able to collect them as well as we are now. And it's to me it seems weird that now we are conscious, at least me. And I don't know how to say it, because it's like obvious, conscious, like right now you're seeing the fucking, like I'm aware, I'm here. And it could just also be like the reason I'm conscious because I'm aware of the reality of this. Right? I'm aware that this isn't as it seems, like some religious bullshit or whatever. I'm aware that this could be more than just God in heaven. This could be souls and whatever the case may be. Maybe that's why I'm conscious, because I'm aware, and that's why somebody else is conscious because they're aware. And the reason why this person is not conscious because they believe this thing, and so they're still trapped in this wake where they're just living day by day and stuff like that, right? And I guess it feels weird to me that we're conscious now. At least me, I'm conscious. I'm pretty sure the person who's listening is conscious. Maybe I don't know. And maybe that the case might be because we're going to live forever. If this is a reality, which I think it is because of AI. And if we're living forever, maybe that's why we're conscious. And because we could no longer, because now there's no longer the idea of death. Death is still a possibility because of car accidents or whatever the case may be. But if you live your life the way you live your life, you probably won't ever have to run the risk of dying. I think, well, obviously there's a chance you'll die no matter what. It's more or less of you could live your life probably fully. You could live probably 1,000 years. Because here's the other thing. This is the other conspiracy, because I watched this Area 52. They talked about these people who were able to, like, if they get hurt or whatever, they're so I guess whatever the case may be, no matter how much hurt they could get, they regenerate so quickly that it doesn't kill them. And in this case with the blood cells and all this medicine that's going to be coming out in the next decade, maybe when you die, it has to be so severe. It has to be your head being chopped off, or they have to burn you alive. I think it has to be very like we call before that becomes a thing. I just think this is maybe that's why we're conscious now. I think that's why we're conscious now, because I think now forever is going to be a thing, and that might be an indication we have no free will. Because I said, how come it didn't accept that? How come it didn't accept my past life till now? It could be the fact that it knew I was gonna die at 60, so there was no need to retain the information. Whereas now that you're going to live forever, we're able to retain the information. Because now to where now reality is. Now what is that? Because let me see. I'm trying to think right now. So no free will. What is that? Is that a thread? Is that a is that like a book? No free will. The argument that free will is an illusion suggests that human actions are determined by prior brain activity, genetics, environment. Because okay, so the idea is, right, I lived a past life. So say I lived 10 lives. At no point, the reason why those 9 lives aren't recorded was because it's not like I could always go back to my younger years, my teen years. It might not be it could just be that. It just could be that. It just could be the only reason why, like, I can't really remember my teens, my youthful years, in my 20s, because I'm not going to remember everything to the T, but I'm going to remember enough to still have those memories in my head. And maybe just because of that, maybe because I was born in 1992, and the last time I was alive was in 1970, until I finally got into this body of 1992. And because 1970 was the last time I recall, and I was like old, so not everything's going to be collecting information, but so maybe at some point those thoughts slowly deteriorated, or they're still there, but they're so vague that if I thought I was an artist, if I try to go back and remember my past, just say if I was trying to remember my past as a child, but somehow I went back to the part where I was a artist, it'd probably be so vague, and it's like, it will sound fucking crazy. It's like, oh, I remember when I painted this. Like, you never painted that. What makes you think that? It's like, I don't know. Maybe a past life. Like, you know what I'm saying? That would sound fucking crazy. Or maybe that's where deja vu comes in, where you're like, you think that happened before because you think you might have recalled, but in reality, that was you triggered a moment in your past life to think you had deja vu, but because you never experienced that in that current life, but it was in the past life, that's when the deja vu came in. It's like, this moment happened, but in your past life. And it could just be that. It just could be that those are very, very so vague that if you say you drew something, you drew this painting, and they're like, no, you didn't, because you never were that artistic and stuff like that. But it was from a past life, but you can't really put it on like that because it sounds fucking crazy if you were to say that. It's like, oh, in my past life I was an artist, so it could just be that. And deja vu could be that. Deja vu could be you rekindling a memory that was in a past life 2, 3, 4 lives ago. And there's other my idea. We like why if that's not the case, why haven't we remembered those points in time? Is it a conspiracy of we're in a prison planet and they're erasing our memories so we don't remember and stuff like that, or is it just is it the is this thread, whatever free will is, whatever thread that we are on, is it realizing, oh, you're gonna die at 20, you're gonna die as a baby, you're gonna die as 40 years old, you're gonna die as an 80, and now you're gonna live forever. So we know for sure, for a fact, that we don't need to retain these memories because you're gonna die, and we know that. And does that take free will? Does that determine free will? Whereas this is basically saying we're aware that you're going to live forever, so you're retaining those. You've retained his memory. You're gaining consciousness because you're able to retain everything in recall, right? What is that? Is that it's free will? What is free will? Because religious people. Religious people think point A to point. Some religious people think that their lives are not free will because God does what He does and sets forth their life, or whatever the case may be. Just whatever. They believe no free will. Some believe no free will. Believe the divine God or whatever is the one who dictates that, right? I didn't like that because it just seems odd. It just seems like he's the puppet master and you're the puppet. And what is that? If he's controlling everything and everything as is, for what reason? I understand, like, so basically he's setting up to fail constantly. They never sit right with me. It didn't make sense for me and stuff like that. Because it's like, I get it, but at the end of the day, for what reason? And I guess there's other ones. Biological and environmental determinism. Neurobiologist Robert Busby argues in his book determined that neurons firing are direct results of upbringing, hormones, and genes and culture. It's like, I get that, but that doesn't change the fact that you could still change that, right? Like upbringing, hormones, like. One thing's like if you're treated a certain way, you're gonna act a certain way. It's like the real hard thing, difficult thing for me to accept, which was your childhood dictates your future and how you act, and that is what I've listened to and stuff like that. That's obviously what happened, but it doesn't mean you can't change it. You could still live in that loop, You could still let your emotions and your upbringing, hormones, and genes to and culture to dictate your wake up, but ultimately you could always change that. You don't. You could obviously be trapped in that, in those recall, but doesn't mean it can't be different. For free will to exist, choice must be independent of prior cause. However, all mental processes are biological, therefore bound by physical laws. What is free will? And what is no free will? Because you're using a lot of things. Obviously, no free will would be the hormones, upbringings, and genes and culture. But you could always break that. So, in the sense that no free will, but you could break that. There's also the idea where, in case the brain activity specific in the moral context can be detected before a person consciously decides to act. Like how you breathe. I don't consciously. I don't see. I don't breathe. I don't. I'm saying consciously. I'm not like knowing how to breathe. There's a point. I want to say there's a point where when I was so bad, I forgot how to breathe. But like I legitimately was like fucking like forgot how to breathe. I forgot how to breathe. That I'm like I was trying to learn how to breathe. But you know what I'm saying? In reality, we are all that. The only reason why you forget how to breathe is because you are very like. The only reason why you're forgetting how to breathe is because you're just like you're I think you're fucking you're panicking or you're just I forget what the reasons for you forgetting how to breathe. There's a reason for why you forgot how to breathe, and it's not good. It's just like you're too much in your head or whatever the case might be. And so but in reality you know how to you don't subconsciously realize that you're actually learning how to breathe. Your body's breathing, but it doesn't. And it could be that just everything's predetermined before you even think of it. But then again, it's like that if you're not aware, where are I don't know how many seconds in like milliseconds or whatever seconds, milliseconds or whatever below it's milliseconds or below that, but even though like if you reach for your glass of water or whatever, you're seeing it in a 5-second delay. So you already thought about grabbing it, but because it's already in your hand, but once you see it, you're just raising your hand up and reaching for it, but it's already in your hand because 5 seconds already played out. But because you're preserving it right now, and there we go. So it could be that it just is that really not free will? Is it just more or less of you're seeing it you're actually seeing it, but you already thought about it, however that may be. Like I'm reaching for my remote. I'm consciously doing that, and I could, it's like. Even though I don't see it, even though it's already there, but now I see it now moving because it's 5 seconds delay, stuff like that. It doesn't change the fact that I already thought it, but it's more or less of it's like this. It's like before it gets here, before it gets here, before it gets here, before it gets here. You know what I'm saying? There's like these little steps. So I don't think that's a thing. It could be a thing, but I just don't. I just think that's more or less of They might be just doing too much on that part. I think that more or less of because you could even go with the atom thing. The idea with the recall, this is like this little minor recall about it, but the idea is atom getting shoot through a two-space wall and it spreads out. Once you look at it, it's all same. It's not. It's just two areas. And maybe that's what's always going to be. You have multiple recall until you actually have a certain recall, then that's where it starts to narrow down the paths. Because I'm trying to think, is it a thread? I'm not thinking about free will. I'm thinking about why free will is. Free will is basically you just do it. I think we have free will. I think these things that you mentioned are just like if there's a chip that makes you addicted to eating it, you're gonna be addicted to eating it. But and once you stop being addicted to it, you're not gonna be addicted to it. You could be whatever, right? But because it's a thing and you allow it, it becomes a thing. So is that no free will just because you're addicted to this thing, or is it an addiction to this, but you still have free will, just more or less you're addicted to it. And the other thing is, it's this the idea that we don't have free will because the mind already dotted up, and we're not conscious enough to wake up. But if I told you, no, but this is a real, if I 5 seconds, there's like a 5 second delay when we see things. So I could grab my bottle of soda, even though it's already my hands are already on the bottle of soda. It takes 5 seconds for me to see that. But because does that make it, you know what I'm saying? Why is that not free will? It's just because you're just doing a process from the beginning to end. Now, does it become free will? No, not because of that. It doesn't become free will just because of that. You're just following a line of process in your brain and the brain activity and stuff like that. But that's essentially free will because I'm reaching for the bottle. That could be a thing, but however, all mental problem of causality for free will to exist, truths must be independent of paradox. However, all mental processes are biological, therefore found by physical laws. Illusional control, scientific experiment involving brain stimulation can cause people to feel they made a choice, like a moving a limb, even when they did not. I think that one, the illusional control, I think that one is the left brain, right brain thing, because that one's kind of fucking weird. Scientific evolving brain simulation can cause people to feel they made a choice. Because I think that might be the left brain, right brain thing. I'm taking away all those things. I'm taking away, the upbringing, hormones, genes, and culture, because I just think that's not really. You could be trapped in that, but that doesn't mean you can't break from that. And the whole, because of the brain and stuff like that already acting out in itself, that I don't think that could be a thing, because I think that it could be a thing. No, it could be a thing. I'm saying it could be a thing. It's just more or less I don't think that's shouldn't be something that you put it, because in reality, you know what I'm saying, I could tell you that we are on a delay, and does that make it different because you're following a process of a thought, but even though you didn't think of it, I just don't. To me, I think that not the case. To me, it could be. I just don't think. I think that's more or less a process of your thought process. And in the case where it says, however, mental processes are biological, therefore bound by physical laws. So, to me, that's what he's trying to say. I think with that, the problem with causality, whatever the case may be. I think that's not that's just recall. That's just that. Like I push X on the button to jump. Once I push the X, my finger has to tap it. Not only does my finger have to tap it, the button has to interact with the recall, then it has to go take the recall to that and stuff like that so it could jump. Even though it's like a split second, reality for all that to connect was probably more than a second. Even though maybe this is time and how we perceive time. Even though that seems like a lot, even though it seems like a split second from my finger to the X to the TV for the person to jump and just do it like in a split second, maybe that's a longer process. But because we are stuck in time, we see it as a snap of a finger, when in reality that was a longer process than we call. And I just think all that in that case, it seems like it's like recall, but it's you're making the decision to do that. You don't have to make them jump. So I'm taking all that away. What is that? So we could use a book. We could use video games. Everything's set in stone. So if everything's set in stone, I'm writing a book, blah blah blah. I'm making this character this, I'm making character this, I'm making character this, da da da. What is that? What is that exactly? Not me writing this. No, that's in the sense of the universe. Yes, I'm writing this. Yes, I'm doing all this. But what is that? Is that the paper? Is the universe layer? Because I believe time is an illusion. Well, yeah, a lot of scientists believe that and all that stuff. But my idea too is time a like in the case where I think I had this theory on one of my apps where I was like, the sun is the platform. No, what is it? How did I have it? Because I have a picture of it, and it's a two-split theory. Two-split whatever. Where we at? Where remember? Because I'm losing my thought. Okay, so the sun is the first thing. The sun is the wall, the first wall with the two slits, and the planet is the board that receives that's where the atoms go through the two splits, and because the atoms are all around, the atom is space, and whether it's the moon, the planet, or Mother Nature, whatever. If it's Mother Nature, so that would be. What is Mother Nature? Mother Nature is probably the world. Moon. It could be the moon. It could be the moon that maybe like how the sun shoots out rays. And we get vitamin D, we get all these little benefits and negative things coming into it. Is that what's happening? Is but not that. Is time? Is that part of time? Is that part of? Is it just its own self, a little blanket that we are on top of? That atoms, I'm I'm trying to think about atoms. Because atoms, as I said, atoms could exist in two different areas at once. And is that what's happening? Because there's also this little wavy thing on the picture. Is that is this what we're getting blanketed by this reality and by this timetable, by this determination? We're blanketed by determination. So we don't have free will. And what is not having free will? It could be. Is it consciousness? But is it consciousness just laying out the? Is it consciousness following the beats of what? For it to be no free will, what is consciousness doing? Because I don't agree with the whole idea that, yes, you could be trapped into the idea that what you live at, what blah, blah, blah. These could become your identity because that you could be trapped in that, and that could remove all free will from you. But at the same time, I believe you could break from that. You could. You could be anything you want to be if you want. So I'm taking that away, and what is consciousness? Why is consciousness a big blanket, and you're on this consciousness that creates these things, and everything's predetermined, like just imagine consciousness being a big blanket that's covering the whole universe. So the universe is is basically just laying on top of that. So a bunch of galaxies, like the Milky Way galaxy, Andromeda, and whatever else galaxies, are on this big blanket. And however far it stretches, if it continues to stretches, and whatever that is, that the part of free will. Is conscious? Are we? So when it stretches, so that's the other thing I haven't thought of. Whoever's at the edge of the free call, that they're probably determined, because I was gonna say a book I wrote, but basically consciousness is free will is at the edge of everything. So that's the only way you can have free will is if you're at the edge of the consciousness blanket, and then you could create whatever, right? Is that the case? And the blanket that we're on, if say the Milky Way galaxy is on the middle to maybe right corner, close to the right middle section of the blanket, and they're spread out all the way, but ultimately the consciousness is able to determine things by where you're at and stuff like that. And the only reason why, if you're outside, you could think outside of it, you could have free will because you have nothing but emptiness, and because you're stretching out the blanket, you're able to create this, and then that follows whatever comes before it, because now they're inside the blanket instead of the outside of the blanket, where whoever's outside are stretching the blanket, and who isn't, they're inside the blanket. And is that why we have no free will? And fucking atoms are popping in and out, playing through the frequencies, and creating these people, and our consciousness is just following this recall. Is that what we're doing? Is that why is that why free will is not happening? is consciousness in play? And if it's not, if it's just this flow of an ocean, and you grabbing consciousness, the consciousness grabs itself and puts itself into this brain, and boom, 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 and we're taking away the blanket, we're taking away everything. Now you're just dealing with the conscious in the head. Okay, so now what it is that's being determination? What's determining? Was it determinism? What is determinism now? If we take the blanket off and consciousness is in each and every brain, it was still in each and every brains within the blanket. It's just more or less of you have the blanket and you have the it's more or less of that's how you get no free will in this theory of mine. Take away the blanket, now you're having consciousness only as a waterbed, and it's just flowing as it flows. It's just existing as a foundation, but that foundation isn't. It's just loosey goosey. There's no reason for why it does this. It just does, and so your consciousness is still in the brain. You have this. Platform it's on, that the foundation that is on, but it's not predeterminism. It just is. It just wiggly. Is it part of the reality where the reason why there's no free will is because of reality existing? And how I say what reality is existing? It's just more or less the same thing as the blanket, but you're having the simulation be a thing. Not necessarily the simulation as they would say as a video game, but the simulation as in you see I have a dirty Mountain Dew in front of me. I see that thing, but in reality what it is, it's a bunch of atoms, but because the simulation gives me the bottle, but in reality it's a bunch of atoms. And it is just that because of reality being a thing, simulation being a thing, is that creating determinism? Is that creating determinism and not free will? And if you're able to break those laws, now are you free? Which most likely you will be, and now you'll be able to determine how you move around the simulation. Could it be that? As I mentioned, simulation, not the video game, but simulation as in whatever's in front of you is actually atoms. The only reason why you don't see atoms is because you're seeing the simulation of that. So in my case, I have a computer in front of me, a laptop in front of me, and even though it's atoms, it's covered in a laptop. So is that what's happening? Is no free will a thing? Is it like we could live forever, but because our body is trying to kill us, we can't. But we could live forever. And in this case, could we have free will, but because of this thing is in the way, we can't. So there's that. It could be the blanket of the consciousness and whatever we call it. You could be outside, you could have free will, or you could be inside of it and you are essentially trapped into whatever the consciousness wants it to be. Or it could be the outside of it, and it could be a blanket of reality. And what is that? Is that a thing in itself? Is it like time, where time shouldn't exist, but time does exist because time is a thing? And what is it? Is it actual material? Is it actual atom? Is that's circling into us? That that we are a prison to, just like free will, we're a prison to it, because whatever that thing is it's creating this illusion that we have none. Okay, because I believe free will, and I believe you could have free will, but also be stuck in the illusion of no free will because of the things they mention. I believe that's a reality, because like I said, there's things that they said that in your child's past dictates your future, and that has been the case with me, where I'm like, oh shit, the way my parents acted toward me has affected me, has determined my future and my present because of that. I could obviously break it because I have that, but if I'm not willing to break it, then I'm continuing to be trapped in it. So I believe you could be. So it's like it could just be simple as that. It could be just a whole misunderstanding of that, and no, not misunderstanding to not misunderstanding, but just this being dead stuck on this idea of having no free will, and more or less relying on these things and not really believing you breaking from it doesn't change the fact that you're still trapped and there's no free will. So that's no free will. Is it no free will? Is it like time? Is it like gravity? Is it like all these other things that we don't have, mathematical formulas to, but they're a thing, and time just seems like a magical thing in space and stuff like that. But like obviously, if you were to go to outer space to hear time, it seems to work differently. So there's what I'm saying. Are these people who are outer space really? Because the whole issue with them also being out of space is we aren't. Because what happens is if you're outer space, you lose bone mass and other things. There's a lot of things that happen when you're in outer space, physically, mentally, and all that stuff. And on Earth, you're fine and dandy. The problems is the health of your yada yada yada. But if we're able to create a space shuttle or spaceship that eliminates all those factors, or eliminates all those health problems, mental things, and how long does that expand your lifespan more? Because obviously, if you're in space and you're losing bone marrow, obviously that's going to cause a health effect to your body and your aging and stuff like that. But if you take all that away, does that automatically? Oh my god. I sound stupid, but if you take everything that might affect a human out in outer space and just put them in a environment that just keeps them, if it was on Earth, and because as I said, because the only reason why it is a problem right now is because of all those effects of space does to a person, and that in itself will make this person become unhealthy and probably it will age them, because obviously if your bones are going fucking gone, chances are a lot of things are going to take a lot of your things are going to take from them. So if you don't use your like if you don't use your legs, if you're sitting your ass all day, you're not whatever shit that feeds your bones are not going to feed it, because they're going to feed it somewhere else, whatever the case may be. But once you put in an environment where that's all taken away, and you're living a healthy life in outer space and all the space environment, whatever that could cause it, is wiped out, and you're just living there. How does that expand your life? If you're eating healthy, if you're doing everything correct, how well does that expand your life? And then there comes the ideas like, with the whole fucking medicine thing. One of the things he said is that reason our cells goes in the wrong direction. At some point, it goes haywire, it goes in the wrong direction, right? Crazy. But then again, I could go back and I say that's wrong too. That's wrong too. That you could go back and you could. But then again, you could. You could go conspiracy, you could go like deep into it, you could use bullshit. Like, it could be one of those things where America didn't want to reveal shit. There's a thing where a Sputnik, I think it was called. I don't know the exact date. I'm just throwing a number out there. 1970 was the first time we put a satellite there. But before then, Harvard had like, I don't know how many years, 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, I don't know how many years, but things pointing at the sky, and they were capturing these fucking, these reflections off in the sky. And it doesn't seem like our skies wasn't empty. It doesn't seem like there was stuff in our skies. And they said it was a reflection. So you could go to the conspiracy that, yes, people were dying young and stuff like that. In some cases, it was diseases and our medicine wasn't there and stuff like that. But you could go to the conspiracy. Where I'm going at is whoever was fucking controlling the earth, and they were like, we're going to block this, and we're going to shoot whatever that happens. We're going to shoot shit, and it's going to make your cells go haywire. So they're not always going to be where they need to be. They're going to be somewhere else and stuff like that, because for some reason they go different directions and stuff like that. And when you take that all out and you go in space and everything is stripped away, and the only thing you're doing is healthy stuff, and does that mean right there and then, if they don't fucking temper with the thing where they're gonna make your cells act a certain way, is your cells gonna go out correctly always, and then that's when your life is going to expand substantially because of that, because there's no negative things interrupting your body, and so so that's the one part I would say. But once you take that away, if you take those little maybe reflection of satellites or whatever the case may be, what those reflections were during the time where we didn't, and this is the first time we ever did it at the time for that Harvard, whatever year that was, and then. But this is the only time we were able to witness it. What happened before then? Before we even started doing that, how long has that been? And how long has that to keep us there? Because you could even say, you want to look at the Bible, God, there was like people who live in 1,000 years, and God said, fuck it, y'all only live into 120. And now that could be the fact that, like, okay, we're gonna fucking layer your world with this thing where it's gonna shoot out things to make sure your atoms, your cells are not always correctly working, and so it's gonna corrupt at a certain time, because this is what we're gonna do. But in this case, not that we can see the skies, we're gonna take that out, and now we're gonna use a fucking Bluetooth, all these other shit, Bluetooth, radio waves, and we're gonna do that to scramble your shit, and we're gonna make sure you keep to 120 and stuff like that. But in reality, we call, and then, so that's what I was thinking right there. Just say we let the cuckoo shit out. And just say, hey, we found a thing where everything's correctly done. You're eating healthy. You're in space, and because right now, as I said, right now, there's a difference. You age a lot slower in space than on Earth. And I think this theory is already in. I think I already made this theory, but it's the idea like, is Mother Nature? Is it the atmosphere? Is it the moon or sun that's creating this? Because there's a point. There's a theory, a conspiracy theory. There's a group of people who lived before the sun, and they lived for like thousands of years. I believe it said. I could be wrong, but they said it lived 1,000 years, and I'm thinking maybe the moon is what's causing us to become older and disrupting our recall. And here's a thought too. Maybe space has a material in there that makes that's a material that the atmosphere of space probably corrects the body, or eliminates whatever's inside our bodies, eliminates it. Maybe we need to look into that. How long? How long has a human lived in space? 437 days, which 100 1 year. So 1 year. The longest single continuous stay in space is 430, said by Valery Polyakov about the Mir space station between 94 and 95. Oh, most cumulative days. What does that mean? Oh, because you know how your body has to adjust. I think obviously the problem with that is the problem with adjusting is in space and in the current situation with the shuttles and stuff like that is not ideal. But as I said, if you rip away all those bullshit that causes the effects that it does when you're in space, does your body adjust to it? And does it... Because obviously your body anatomically changes, and once you change your environment. Someone who lived there for a year and what, a month? I think it said 375. I can't go piss. Fuck. If given more years or continuous more years, if you remove all that, your body will adjust. And is it adjusting by removing impurities? Because space will be doing that, removing impurities in the body. Huh. Or that's a crazy thought right now. And I think I always had that. I had it on the recall, but I just didn't carry it into space. And what is that? change. Your body will anatomically change in the environment it is in. Biologically, too. Because if you go to, I think it's Seattle, super depressing because it's of cloudy and stuff like that. So guess what? You're very gloomy. You're not getting the vitamin D, and you're getting depressed and all that shit, right? If you go to a place of recall, like a place of sunniness, you're gonna be a lot more happier. It's gonna change your mood. You gain the vitamin D, you're gonna get a lot healthier and stuff like that compared to if you're in a place where the sun's always covered up by the clouds and shit like that. Certain like you could be obviously if you have different parents and certain parents, like you're gonna be physically gifted if your parents are athletes, and that's gonna be culture too. You're gonna have just it's gonna be a lot of things because we call. I'm just thinking, and I just think that's wild. I don't know how wild that is, because obviously people have these thoughts already. Nothing I've thought of is original because somebody thought something of it. I'm resting on the shoulders of giants, and it just never came across my mind to once you separate the two, space and recall, what exactly is that? What chemistry? What biological? What is going on in there? And how do we? Well, obviously that's obvious. That's obvious. That's obvious because once you change environments, you're gonna change with them. So once you say if a baby's born in there and lives in there without in a more better environment in space where we are limiting all the effects that we have now in space because we are very limited in what we could do and how we build our shuttles and stuff like that. But if you did that and if it's where we have gravity that we're able to walk while worrying about wherever the case may be, gravity taking us up and stuff like that. How do we change? And how great does we change? Because that's going to happen. Damn. Or do we... There's this book. I forgot. It was when I was very young. This is obviously a thing that could happen, but they were in a dark space, and these things lived there forever. And they were. I forgot how it went. It was so long ago, but I remember. At the end of the day, they were looking. I'm not sure if they were looking at it or they started to see the change in themselves, but they were starting to change into these great creatures. No longer human anymore because they limit themselves from the sun and stuff like that because they're on a foreign planet or whatever the case may be, but because that they started to change physically and we call it. And how do we change? As space people, do we still look the same? And the only reason why we keep the same look is because we go back on space, or is it because evolution is a thing? And evolution is a thing just more or less of how evolution explaining why we are what we are is not. It is, if you want to believe it, but as I said, there's a lot of scientists who question that now because scientists are trying to find other ways to figure out why we've skipped evolution. We made a super jump, and why was the case? And one of it would be mushrooms, but it could also be just technology. In this case, the fire burning. And because they were able to think of fire and creating fire, which create another recall resource of making their food, and then that chemical balanced to what we would eat raw. Now it's fucking hot and different, and now does that change the chemical in our heads? And but now we're trying to figure out, now these ape like creatures trying to figure out this next invention, and is that the reason why evolution jumped so quick? Because we were constantly thinking of the next thing. So technology is another theory, as mushrooms and evolution. But as I said, that was so fast that it doesn't make sense to how we got that intelligent in that time span. What is that now? There's a lot of questions now. What is that? We obviously going to change. Is it? It could be like a. It could be a change, but that it's such a drastic change though. I think that's the problem. It's just a drastic change, because you're on planet and then you're on space. That will be a drastic change, because you're eliminating. Because we eliminated the apex predator from the equation. Once we started building homes and buildings and stuff like that, we eliminated apex predators. So that immediately changed us. I don't know to what degree, but it's one of those things where we do have this sense of danger. We feel it and stuff like that. But now that might not be as potent as it was before, where we had to be more aware of that. And because of that, our eyes might be more, instead of being as big as they were, they're now a little bit more smaller because of that. And then now it's like, okay, but that in that sense, that's the change. It wasn't as drastic as space just removing a lot of things from it, and that maybe that accelerates our look. And we change it drastically in our appearance. And so what I'm trying to say with that, so maybe we don't, there's a chance we don't deviate far from what we look, only minor. And if we do change drastically, it might not be too drastic, but it'd be drastic enough where maybe people are a little bit more taller than usual. Or their senses of threat is removed entirely, and you don't see that. Whereas say me, who would be planet side, that still has that sense in me, whereas that person doesn't. It could be that kind of a drastic recall, whereas not a physical to degree where it's like, oh my god, you look far from what I look like. I don't know. It just, now I'm like, what is time? No. What is free will? What is not free will? Is that a blanket layered on top of us, just like time? Not necessarily a blanket, but like a fucking like a you could say a video game where it's like. When you hit this certain thing, a certain nerve pops up, and then you act like that. But that, what I'm saying, that then what is that? Why? If that's the case, is that the case where the recalls clicking, if you hit a certain point, boom. So if you heard like a video game, right? If you hit this certain point, the game will put a screen like a cutscene. Is that what's happening? Where you hit this point, you're gonna count. This is multiple actions you're gonna take, and this is the action you'll take most likely because of previous things and stuff like that and whatever. But are you able to break from that? Yeah, unless it's so strict that it's like you are in a video game and you can't break that. But then again, it goes to that'd be a limited no free will. That'd be an expansive no free will. It could be a limited free will. And if it's a if it's a limited where you're only given the options you are given, and what's ahead of it that predetermines that? I saw a picture. No, I was watching a scientific thing. I don't know why, but the idea was maybe I think they have it in reverse, or idea came to mind that it's a reverse. So Big Bang Theory happens and it's spreading out, whatever. But there's a other thing at the end that's coming. So that's where that's where predeterminism is, and stuff like that. Maybe that's where it's coming from the other end. And what's the other end that's creating that? Is that God? Or the idea of God? Because my idea of, if you want to use the idea, my idea of the Big Bang Theory is the assumption, the inception of it's a simulation theory. So basically, whatever was before the Bang Theory, my theory is consciousness. Consciousness created material created atoms, and atoms, protons and all that bullshit. And then that created the simulation. And then the other end is that the other end of the simulation where it reaches its end and it's just sprouting out. So now that what you're seeing is the other end of the Big Bang Theory. So that's why everything's predetermined. What if it's not there and it's nothing? Is it the idea that we're in a blanket and everything's predetermined inside the blanket, but once you go outside the blanket, you actually have free will? But no matter what, if you're in the middle of it or just in the outskirts, not on the edge of it, you're still in the determinism. Is it that, or is it the bread idea where you basically I think it's like parallel universes, and they're all in sequence and stuff like that, and it's all in a bread, and that's not necessarily predeterminism. It's, I guess in my ways it's not, but in this case it is, because it's like everything's kind of set in stone. Everything's playing out as such. It's just playing out as such, as like we're removing time, and the only reason why we have time is because we are experiencing it. But in that point of view, where you're looking at the bread, time is not there. Time is present. Time is, it's there. There's no. It's like if there was time, then everything would have been from front to end, going as we call it. That's probably more or less of real determinism. That's probably determinism, where if you go from beginning to end at the bread, determinism. In this case, it's everything's going at the same time from past, present, and future. And in my case, those are several branches out that happen within the bread, even though it's a finite bread, it's infinity. You could fit how many stuff you want to fit in there, but at the end of the day, in this branch of ideas, it's going to stick to one, and everything's going to adjust to as such, but everything's going to have a cause and effect to the past, present, and future. It could be that that case. I'm trying to think of a one of it nothing being there, which is causing my head to break. What's not there? As I mentioned, the dots, and I think that's where I'm at, the dots. And if it's causing one reaction, why is there, but what's there ahead of it? Why is that determinism right there? Is it just bunch of branches branching out, and you're just going by, and the universe is going by percentage of it possibly being this, and the chances every time, and it's not like a second. It's that atom second. Whatever atom is, where one exists to this, it could exist in one place to another. That's what's happening. So there's like 6 branches in one decision, and the reason why it's determinism, because in those 6 branches, it's not a second, it's an atom, and that atom is able to define it right there and then. Okay, this person's right there, even though, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options, the 6 option is 58%, third option is 20%, fourth option is 2%, and you get what I'm saying. But ultimately, the 6th option is a likely option, and by the atom second, whatever the atom is, already determined that, and so it's constantly hitting that constantly. So that's why determinism in that case. And what if that's not? What if you remove all that? I'm trying to remove all that. And why is that determinism? Where's the determinism? What exactly is determinism? Why is there a present there? Why is there a present to a? Why is that future a present? Why is that future a present? Why is that? Because it has to be known, and if it's in that case, and all those cases, if it's not something that's like a video game, there's still free will, but just a limited amount of free will. If you do the bread where there's a limited, if it goes from left to right, that's no free will. Because you have a left to right, you have a timetable that's following. But if you have a bread that has multiple outcomes, multiple branches, it's just a limited free will. From 0 years old to 3 billion years old. If you go to that left and right, no free will. If you have a bunch of branches that are present with past, present, and future, limited free will. And then the whole video game thing, you could, unless it's very strict, you're hitting certain things and it's popping up in recall, right? Even video games, you have multiple options, unless it's very, but ultimately, no matter how many options, you're going to go straight to a certain end. So that takes away no free will. You could even make it even stricter. That takes it further to no free will. And then so there's that. You could it could be that, but it could also be what I just mentioned before, which I just forgot. What is that after? What makes it determined? What makes it a present future? a present future. A present future. I mentioned all the other shit I mentioned. It's like code. If you want to make it a code, it's code. But I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to figure out why it's a present future. Because if it's a present future, I'm trying to figure out why it's a present future. I mentioned what I mentioned, and those are all reasons why there's a present future. I'm trying to think of one without those reasons. Why there's a present future. Because as I mentioned, with time, you could put it as gravity. You could put it as because even gravity, they don't. I forgot how they describe, but they don't even know what exactly gravity is. And time, you don't have an idea what time is. It could be a disease. It could be like a little atom that's layered in invisibility that covers our Earth, our atmosphere. So just like air, like oxygen. Oxygen is oxygen? What is oxygen? OX? What? No, fucking that. O2O, H2O, I think is oxygen. The atomic number 8, or just the letter O that we call. So that's how O2. That's how you could. So that's how just say that's how the atoms are numbered, layered. So when you breathe in air, you're breathing these little bubbles of O's, which creates oxygen. And are you breathing in time? And if that's the case, that's the same thing with determinism. Are you breathing in something that creates determinism? Can you block it? Whereas when you're in space, you're able to block it. And that's why you're able to grow, because you're able to block the time. No, you could. No. Because that's not what I'm trying to get at. That could be another thing. That could be time, and blocking out time in space and stuff like that. Which could be a thing too. But you get what I'm saying. Is determinism, is that the same thing where it enters your body and then you're getting wired to do these things? Or you could use the theory of 5G, 4G, and you're like, oh no, that's fucking crazy. How could that be a possible thing? The Havana syndrome, they did that too. It's a conspiracy theory, but the Havana syndrome is basically they had a satellite shooting out, and some of these soldiers were fucking going crazy because they're getting frequencies thrown into their heads, so they were like going mad. Havana syndrome or something like that, and so it's possible. And then you could not even that, but you can even go to Elon or any of these other tech companies that are making telepathic people who are able to play a video game telepathically and stuff like that. So it's possible, and they could essentially use those towers to affect us and create these frequencies in our bodies to follow a certain call. So if you're follow a certain thread and stuff like that, it could be just that. It could be like we are free will, but since technology or some aliens or whatever want to control us, they decided to put these frequencies in our bodies to have taken our free will from us. That could be one where that's how you get a present future. Because of that could be an outsourced thing, and I'm because I'm trying to maybe I'm trying to make determinism a physical thing, like time, like time is whatever it is, but with time I'm trying to make it into, like I said, maybe the air, maybe there's a what is it, chemical element we didn't discover, and it's time, and we're sucking it into our air like oxygen, and that's why we are aging. And once you jump out in outer space, you're removed of the T chemical element, and because of that you're able to live longer, you're not aging and stuff like that. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with that. And in some cases I'm not, with this case with the maybe frequencies being put into our bodies, or maybe we being in a simulation in a video game sense, or any audience other cases. And maybe that's what I'm trying to do, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe that, like, time, they say time is an illusion. Maybe time is not an illusion. Maybe time is as I say, like a chemical element, and that's why it's creating aging. But maybe no, free will is an illusion, and free will is reality, but we have no free will, and that more or less of is no, that's an illusion and not a thing, like say time. Even though time is not a thing, maybe time is actually a chemical element, and we haven't discovered it yet, or we don't because maybe it's black matter, maybe it's black energy, maybe whatever those things are, maybe that's what it is actually, and we don't know. We're not saying it now, but I think maybe that's what it might be. Maybe the illusion is determinism. Delusion is determinism. In reality, we have free will, but we are getting the illusion by frequencies or whatever case may be, or it's changing our reality where we're seeing this thing and stuff like that. It could be that. It could be all these other things I mentioned. And I'm trying to think one more thing, maybe, because I'm trying to make it a thing, make it a chemical element instead of an illusion. I have some illusions, which is video game simulation and frequencies interrupting our free will and creating us to do things by their will. So we call it. And then there's the thing, maybe if we jump out in outer space, and we're living in outer space, free will is, we get free will back, because no longer are we being contaminated by the frequencies or whatever things that we might insert our bodies, and it's creating these predetermined actions, because this thing enters our body, this frequency or this chemical element enters our bodies, and or we're hitting certain things at certain we call frequencies, and it acts up as such, like, okay, because you hit this spot, we're going to do this, and you have whatever, and maybe once you go in space, it removes that, and you have free will. Maybe I'm ending on this, but I don't know. I'm still trying to think. What could that be? Because the reason why I'm thinking it as a thing, like a chemical element, or I'm just saying chemical element, but it could be whatever. And the reason why I'm thinking it as that is because it has to exist. That's the issue I'm having. It has to exist. So if it's existing, and I'm limiting everything I've said before, because I'm trying to think of other options to why predeterminism is a thing. If a future present exists, if we're eliminating everything I've mentioned, why is it existing? It has to be a thing. Is it an illusion? If it's an illusion, then it's a virtual simulation, a video game simulation. But if it's just Is it just a vagueness of a future present? Because is it just grabbing the percentages and playing out such, but because it's at a snap of a finger, not even a snap of a finger, but the fastest thing that could ever possibly be, which is an atom, that's why it's right there. But in reality, it's still free will, just more or less 6 options, even though I'm using a snap of a finger just to give you the idea, but that's how quick it is to determine the future, that you don't have it doesn't come up. You know what I'm saying? It's not like something you could think of. Like I'm like right here. I'm having moments where I could have ability a time to think of something. This one is so quick that you don't have that ability, and because of that, it's predetermined. There's a chance it could change. Because as I said, there's 2 atoms in 2 places, could exist in one place, and that could change abruptly. This atom could exist on here instead of where it's supposed to exist, and then that could change. But that future present, instead of being the video game simulation where it's fully like 100% there, it's 40% there, 50% there, because it's still dealing with the possibilities of this, right? And you're thinking. Why is that existing? As I said, the reasons why it would exist there, video game simulation, past future is there, but it's not 100%. It's 40% clear. It's like how there's people is like, I can't see the future clearly. I can only see it like we call it, because of maybe that's what's happening. You're only able to see the future, present future, because it could happen that way, but there's a chance it might change because the atoms could just jump within whatever atom jump. I don't know what you would define that kind of speed, where atoms could exist in several areas at once, and then when it's discovered, it could just exist in that space, right there and then in that space. And so whatever options there were outside of that option that was chosen, those options are immediately gone, and that option solidifies, and that's constantly happening, and it's at the speed of an atom. And as I said, if you push your button, if you could put your hand and you push the X button, it goes to the wire or goes to the PlayStation, and then it goes to the screen, and the screen receives. Yes, that's only and it happens like in a split second. You're like, wow, that's so crazy. That's happened in a split second. But in reality, however long that took that time. Whatever, because we're not talking about time, but it took whatever long that took. So however long that instant took, and you're dealing with that, but I'm trying to make it a thing, a chemical element, an atom, whatever. Why is it a present future? Why is it a present future? If you eliminate everything I just said, why is it a present future? Why is it a present future? Honestly, I didn't think I would go 2 hours. I honestly thought I was going to go 30 minutes, if not an hour. I'm close to 2 hours, and this all led to what I thought about how we called. And then once you eliminate that, what is that now? And then predeterminism. It's just wild how long this. Because I think I have something else in my mind, because it's like right there in the back of my head. Why? Because I'm trying to label it as a chemical element, but now I'm also the only reason why I'm not using it as an illusion, because the illusion would be video game simulation. The video game simulation would be, you think you have the, like like a video game simulation, it would be like, you could also go with the dilemmas. It's limited free will, but ultimately, depending. If you take the limited simulation to the video game, see the video game, it gives you idea. Even though there are some options it gives you, ultimately at the end you have to face the end, and that's where the end ends. In limited branches, it could give you the same. You could use the same theory, but you could also not. You could just like, okay, this person is gonna go this path because there's a higher percent. There's chance you could go this time with this one, but this is a higher percentage. But that also doesn't change the fact that this 20% could happen too, and then you're going, and ultimately it could lead up to that. But ultimately, it's a moving ball. Or you could just have it where everything's gonna go, but it's gonna always lead to this middle section, this one section. But if you want to, you could. That's how you could do it. You could say these six ideas. It could be 7 ideas, 7 branches. It could constantly spiral to whatever. But ultimately, it will lead to one ending, which is probably death. But Is that why? Is that why? Is it as simple as we die? That's why it's predeterminism. We die. Maybe that's why maybe there's a chance. As I said, these are happening when AI becomes a thing. If the humans, there's like this fucking, now they're starting to come out with these things of scientists are dying. They're dying mysteriously. They're dying in weird ways. There's like recall, right? And now that's starting to crop up, right? And the government is trying to figure out why is this happening. Trump said it, like, we talked about these people and why they died as soon as they were in part of the recall, right? And as I mentioned, maybe if we're lucky, maybe at some point they're like, okay, we can't do nothing about this. We can't kill these people who are trying to expand our lives, because it's going to happen no matter what because of AI. As I mentioned, I don't think we are stupid. The idea to think we are stupid is stupid. We are smart, and the only reason why we haven't expanded, the only reason why we are stuck is because the government is killing our people, or whoever the powers may be is killing our people because they don't want us to recall. And now I think this might be the time where maybe that's why we're having consciousness. And maybe why we're maybe why we're having consciousness, because we're not going to die anytime soon. And maybe this is what is. If you have consciousness, then you have free will. If you have consciousness, oh my God, see, like sometimes when I say something like that, my body reacts in a way that is like I hit a point. Maybe we're consciousness because we're free will. Maybe the past life we weren't conscious because we didn't have free will. Now because we're free will, we have conscious. And that might be because of death. And that might be because we no longer will see death. Whereas in our past lives, we constantly did. And maybe, and I was just talking about it. Maybe that's the answer right there. Maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe predeterminism is because of you live to die. Basically you're gonna die right there. You have a finite amount of time on you, and you're dying, and that's why determinism is a thing, because we die. And I think now that's getting away. I think now we have consciousness is because we have free will. And the reason why we have free will and consciousness is probably because that's see that problem with that is, okay, so what does that tell you? That there's a future, and it's already determining that you need consciousness now, because we already aware of you existing beyond the lifespan. Which you could, and so I'm going to say that. I'm going to expand on that, because it's not the fact that, yes, there's holes in that, but you just need to probably let that get out so somebody else could see that and think, oh no, what he probably should have thought is this, right? Because that's what happens to me. There's things I watch, I'm like, no, he probably should have thought this too, because Rico, right? So maybe that's what's happening. Maybe that's why predeterminism determinism is a thing, is because we die. Because there's a beginning and then with all those factors that you mentioned, that I mentioned, with determinism is kind of dictates that. And then if you're able to live beyond those, because obviously it's gonna go racist, stereotypical racism, stereotypical stereotypes. There you go. If you live in a certain neighborhood, there's a chance you're gonna live a certain, like if you live in a hood, there's a chance your recall. If you live in a hood, there's gonna be a lot of things that will predetermine your fate, because you allow these figures to continue to hold those stereotypes in place, and because it's the environment, it's the culture and all that stuff. So guess what? Boom, boom, boom. Guess what? You're gonna be this at the end of it, and the life expectancy for that is, say, 25, and because of that, we could go by the numbers and boom, 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 and figure out that you're gonna die like that. So right there, there's a chance you could ignore the bullshit and say, okay, I don't believe this, because it's a hive mentality, it's a negative, it's an ugly mentality that hood has, and now you're like, now you just alter that, and now your death is gonna be 40 to 50 or whatever the case may be, because whatever happened there will still carry on. And depending if you're able to continue to change that, you're going to grow older, you're going to, what I'm saying, there's a lot of things that will benefit you once you constantly change those outcomes, and those things are set in stone for you because of environments and shit like that. And it's just simple as that. You die because of where you live, that's predetermined how you're going to die. And you could always change it and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it just depends how you change it. Once you, like, just say you're in the hood and 5, it's already starting to happen, you're already starting to believe this, do you start changing at 10 or do you start changing at 20? And if you change it at 10, guess what? Your branches are going to be a lot better, because you're going to be a healthy mentality. Boom. Okay, so if it's 20, guess what? You're gonna probably lead into 30. And the fact is, when you're 20 compared to your 10, it's a lot different, and there's a lot of things. So there's a lot of things that will conflict with those actions, no matter what. And then, so if, say, you with the 10, you understand the recall, no matter what, you're gonna still hit those points of conflict, and whatever case, how you maneuver, you're going to still reach to that point. Then are you going to, with 20 and 30, when you're 20, how are you going to act? How are you going to grow? Are you going to grow, or are you going to accept life as is? Are you going to, where are you going to go? And then it's going to be better, and as it goes, you're going to start. It's that branch thing. I did this branch thing. I forgot what it was. I did a branch thing. It's same thing like that. It's infinity bread. It's the infinity bread. Same thing like that. At some point, you're going to be so far out from the middle that what was predetermined for you was no longer, and now it's so far off that it's not. It's not as determined as you may think, because ultimately you constantly made those changes. So it could be as simple as that. That's why we have determinism, because at the end of the day, you're just accepting all the things. Basically what Dave said, in that sense. So I don't know why I'm just rambling about that, but yeah, I think it has to be it. I think this has to be it. But as I said, it's time. I guess that's what I'm trying to say on that. And that in that instance is more or less of a predetermined because of time. If that time is removed, which is death. No, if life and death, if death was removed, predeterminism is with it no longer a thing. Just because of you could fall back in line, but also you could go back out, and you have in some cases, like in the Bible, 1,000 years to do that, and then so if it's 1,000 years, you're gonna constantly go to this up and down, and it could hit that, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's so fucking. It could be the infinity bread, but it could also just be you're basically you're in the ocean swimming, and whatever the case, wherever you go is gonna go, and whatever you hit, you're gonna hit, and recall. And that's why I think we might have consciousness is whatever I said. I forgot what I said. We have free will because of consciousness. And because time is no longer a factor anymore, no longer is predeterminism erasing that. And that's what I'm saying with that one. And it's just that simple of because of death being a thing. If death wasn't a thing, predeterminism isn't a thing. But predeterminism is a thing, chances are you're going to fall in line with the idea of your environment and all that stuff and shit like that. But once that's taken away, you're going to die at some point, or you're going to continue to better yourself. But as I said, once you hit that no death thing, it's going to be up for grabs. You could do whatever you want, and you're going to be healthy, and then you're just going to just experience life as whatever's possible. And that could be that simple as that. It's just death being in the way, and now that we are conscious, we are free willed, and that means death is no longer going to be way. And the problem with that is now we're looking at that, so there's something right there already telling us we're going to live longer than we are. We're going to live longer, so there's already predetermined that we're going to live longer, so it removes that. So now I'm trying to think about that now. Could it be as simple as, hey, death is happening, so guess what? Everything I just said, blah, blah, blah. Predeterminism, we're going to just play this out, blah, 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 until you finally have the point of free will. Then we're going to just there's like, okay, it's just, no matter what, it's like that. And the only way you could bullshit that is like, the only way you could bullshit that is the bullshit way to do it is the same way as we bullshit in these we call anything productive in our technology, as I mentioned, we I don't know what it was, 1970, whatever the year it was. We didn't have a satellite until 1970. I don't know. I think it's called Sputnik. That's the first time we had a satellite in the sky. We call. So anything up in the sky that might be material that in this case, I think this was a reflection, and these rolls of glass on Earth. This is before we had a satellite, and because that was a thing, maybe our military didn't tell us that we had this technology, which we didn't, because that seems advanced. And if we did, then we were we are far more advanced than they were telling us. If that was happening back then we should be dangerous people. Which I believe we are. I believe we are fucking dangerous, and so I believe we have alien technology that could kill alien people and all that stuff. So I don't think that the idea that we are untouchable by aliens, I don't think that that's a reality. I think in reality, aliens don't come at us because they know we will shoot, and the only thing that protects them is the fact that we don't know that. But it could be that case. It could be because the one that's the bullshit way I would say is, do you remember when you were a kid the things that happened? No, you don't. There's like this blackness. You don't remember, right? And maybe that's because in 92, just say 94, 95, 96. That's when I started gaining consciousness, right? Just say the only reason why why I gained consciousness is because they discovered immortality, and it now the consciousness said, "Oh, you guys discovered consciousness. You guys discovered immortality. So guess what? I'm going to throw this consciousness into you because you now have the ability to have free will now." It could be that fucking extreme and stuff like that. Because if I don't do that and I just do it in a sense right now, where I was like, okay, now the only reason I got consciousness is because I have free will. But in the end, it was like, how would you get consciousness if it wasn't already known in the future? Because in the future, it would have to be known that you would have to have create immortality. But now that it just suddenly pops up this year, now this is conscious. No, it's because it was already ahead of time knowing consciousness was a thing. And as I said, the bullshit way would be that. But then again, also a little clarity on because the Emerald Tablets had the Philosopher's Stone, and they mentioned P being one of the recall, but it wasn't P. They used P because they used it as identifier. So because whatever it was, it looked yellow, so it looked like P. So they said P, but whatever it was that was inside there isn't P. It was whatever chemicals or whatever they created to make a Philosopher's Stone. So that's when it recall. But yeah, I could go right there. Like, immortality was probably made right there. So why didn't I have consciousness back then? And that could just be, as I said, predeterminism, where everything's figured out. Like, you're gonna die, so you don't need the consciousness. And it could just be this. In this case, my bullshit way would be, okay, bullshit. This is another bullshit. Maybe it could be consciousness or God's point a little finger at me saying you're special. Guess what you're going to have? You're going to have consciousness. Because you're that important to what's going to happen in these coming years. And we need you to be aware of that. Whereas this person doesn't, because they're going to live to die. In your case, you're going to live to live, and whatever that case may be, your importance to that. And it could just be me being the tool to further somebody else's story that furthers recall. But then again, that goes to just get some random ass person and take away consciousness and stuff like that. This goes back to spirits and souls, where you could differentiate spirits and souls, where I could be considered soul, while somebody could be considered spirit. A spirit would be an NPC, a soul would be an actual part of the consciousness or God or whatever case you want to put right there. And as I said, I was the one who's been touched by consciousness, and they're like, you're special, we're going to put consciousness in you because you're going to hit a certain, there's importance to what you're doing right now that needs to be remembered for whatever case may be, whereas other people don't. And it goes to that case, where maybe that's why we have consciousness and stuff like that. I think that had to be it, because I've did was it 3 hours and 40 minutes. I did what do you call? Also, I was doing the edits for my episode for YouTube. I'll tell you right now that took. I did 2 minutes of the because it's like a 30-minute video, 33-minute video. I did only 2 minutes of edits on that because I'm just removing and a lot of those breaks, and that 2 minutes took 2 hours. That took 2 hours. So maybe I don't know. That took 2 hours. And those like 2 to 4 minutes I did, and I'm like, I only did 33 minutes, and it took me 4 minutes. Those 4 minutes took me 2 hours. So I don't know. Maybe I still work on the and not, but maybe I let those pause. I don't know, because I was like, imagine this 2 hours, and I did. It'll be too much. It'll be so fucking much. And maybe I don't need to try that hard. Maybe I just post this shit out there. Because I said that 2 to 4 minutes I did in that 33-week call took me 2 hours. So there's a chance I might just post shit and not fucking care. Because that's fucking crazy. I'm not gonna do that. That's fucking crazy. But I think this is it because I spent 3 hours and 40 minutes of recall. I did a podcast before, and I'm doing this one, and it's a lot. I didn't expect to be 2 hours on this, but that's it. Whatever I talked about, that's it.